Welcome back to Critical AI, where we dissect the most pressing issues at the intersection of AI and society. Today, we're diving deep into the potential impact of Donald Trump's second presidency on the future of AI in the U.S.
It's certainly a landscape full of intrigue, especially with Trump's recent appointment of David Sachs as the AI and crypto czar.
Definitely. So who are we dealing with here? We've got a stack of articles outlining the key players and, the potential for some serious power struggles within this new team.
Well, what's fascinating is the organizational structure.
Okay.
Sachs's role has been scaled back, likely due to his desire to maintain his venture capital commitments.
So he's not really a czar in the traditional sense.
Not quite. More of an advisory role now. He's still involved, but not leading day-to-day operations.
Okay.
And of course, maintaining his venture capitalist role raises some eyebrows about potential conflicts of interest.
I think I can see why people would be concerned about that.
Yeah.
So who is running the show then?
That's where Michael Kratsios comes in. He's returning from Trump's first term and is expected to lead daily tech policy operations, potentially overshadowing Sachs.
So we've got Sachs, the figurehead, and Kratsios, the actual operator.
Yeah.
Talk about a potential recipe for conflict.
Exactly. This unusual structure could easily lead to confusion, internal conflict, and ultimately hinder effective policy implementation.
And to make things even more interesting, we have Sriram Krishnan joining as a senior AI advisor, former Microsoft, Twitter, and Meta exec. He left Andreessen Horowitz and worked closely with Elon Musk during the Twitter takeover.
Krishnan's addition is particularly interesting given the influence of Elon Musk. You can't forget, Musk is leading the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE as they're calling it, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy. His relationship with Trump is well documented, and his influence, particularly regarding regulation, could be significant.
Speaking of regulation, that seems to be the elephant in the room. A lot of people in the tech industry are anxious about where things are headed under Trump, especially given the team he's assembled.
The articles definitely suggest a lean towards deregulation. Sachs and Musk, in particular, seem to be advocating for that approach, aiming to promote innovation and maintain a competitive edge against China.
But wouldn't a rush to deregulate raise concerns about potential risk?
Yeah.
We're talking about data privacy, content moderation, ethical considerations, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. Expedited AI project approvals with minimal oversight could have some unintended and potentially negative consequences.
Okay.
There's a delicate balance between fostering innovation and ensuring responsible AI development, and it remains to be seen how this administration will handle it.
So how is Silicon Valley reacting to all of this? Must be a mixed bag of emotions.
You see it in the articles. There's apprehension, especially around potential conflicts of interest, with Sachs still in venture capital and Musk's heavy influence.
That's understandable. But there must be some optimism as well, right?
There is. Some folks, particularly in the startup world, see Sachs's appointment as a positive. They hope he'll push policies that help them compete with big tech.
That makes sense. A little bit of a shakeup could benefit those who haven't quite made it to the top of the tech pyramid yet.
Exactly. But at the same time, the uncertainty about regulation is causing anxiety for many in the industry. They're looking for clarity on issues like open source AI and export controls.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on one more key player we haven't mentioned yet. Bo Hines, the head of the Crypto Council. He's described as a young, outspoken Trump loyalist and a strong advocate for crypto.
Hines is a bit of a wild card in this whole mix. His appointment definitely raises questions about the depth of his experience and how his strong political affiliations might influence his approach to regulating the crypto industry.
It's certainly a lot to unpack. So to sum up, we've got a potentially volatile mix of personalities, a push for deregulation, and a tech industry that's equal parts excited and terrified. This is going to be interesting to watch unfold.
To say the least. And we haven't even gotten to the potential impact on clean energy yet.
Right. That's where things get really interesting. I mean, who would have thought that a Trump administration might inadvertently end up accelerating the adoption of renewable energy?
It is a bit of a head-scratcher, isn't it?
So let's talk about that. What's the connection between AI and crypto, both championed by this administration, and the potential for a clean energy boom?
Well, it boils down to energy consumption. Data centers, the backbone of both AI and crypto, are notoriously energy intensive. As these technologies grow, so does the demand for electricity to power these centers.
So are we talking about a potential energy crisis in the making?
Not necessarily a crisis, but it's definitely a challenge. The articles point out that relying solely on traditional fossil fuels might not be enough to handle this exponential increase in demand.
That makes sense. Fossil fuels are already under scrutiny, And adding the energy needs of a booming AI and crypto industry would only intensify the pressure to find alternatives.
Exactly, and that's where renewable energy sources come into play.
Solar, wind, geothermal.
Things that Trump hasn't historically been a fan of.
So you're saying that a Trump administration, known for its skepticism toward climate change and renewable energy, might be forced to embrace these technologies simply to keep the lights on for its AI and crypto initiatives. That's pretty ironic, don't you think?
It's a classic case of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
They're pushing for advancements in AI and crypto, but those very advancements could end up driving progress in clean energy. Who could have predicted that?
It's almost like a technological domino effect.
Yeah.
One innovation leads to another, and suddenly you have a whole new landscape.
That's a great way to put it, and it highlights how interconnected these technological advancements are. What happens in one area can ripple out and have a significant impact on seemingly unrelated sectors.
So what kind of impact could this have on the energy sector specifically?
Well, if the demand for clean energy surges as predicted, we can expect a massive influx of investment into renewable energy infrastructure. Think solar farms, wind turbines, and even new technologies like advanced battery storage.
So we're not just talking about a shift in energy sources, but also a potential economic boom in the clean energy sector. That would create jobs, boost economic growth, and potentially position the U.S. as a leader in renewable technology.
Exactly. It's a potential win-win scenario, even if it's driven by motivations other than environmental concern.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it? The articles also mention some potential downsides to this rapid adoption of renewables.
One major concern is the issue of intermittency.
Okay.
Solar and wind power, by their nature, are not constant sources of energy. Their output depends on the weather, which can create challenges in maintaining a stable power grid.
So how do we solve that problem? I mean, we can't exactly control the weather.
That's where investment in energy storage solutions comes in. Things like advanced battery systems, pumped hydro, and other emerging technologies can store excess energy generated during peak production and release it when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
So it's not just about generating clean energy. It's also about figuring out how to store it effectively and ensure a reliable supply, regardless of weather conditions.
Exactly, and that's where the real innovation will happen. This push for AI and crypto might end up driving significant advancements in energy storage technologies, which would benefit the entire renewable energy sector in the long run.
It's fascinating to consider how these seemingly disparate technological advancements could converge and reshape entire industries. Who knew that Trump's AI and crypto ambitions might inadvertently lead to a clean energy revolution?
It's a classic example of how technology can have unintended consequences, sometimes for the better.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential impact on clean energy. But what about the tech industry itself? What kind of influence might Silicon Valley gain under a second Trump term?
It's a point of contention for sure. The appointment of people like David Sachs with deep ties to the tech industry suggests a closer relationship between the White House and Silicon Valley.
But isn't that a good thing? Having someone who understands technology at the helm seems like it would lead to more informed decisions.
It could be, but it also raises concerns about potential conflicts of interest and whether the needs of specific companies or industries might be prioritized over the broader public good.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Take Sachs's continued involvement with his venture capital firm, Kraft Ventures. While holding an advisory role in government, his personal financial interests could potentially influence his policy recommendations.
So there's a risk that decisions might be made to benefit his investments or those of his associates, rather than focusing on what's best for the entire tech industry or the country as a whole.
Exactly, and it's not just Sachs. The articles point out concerns about Elon Musk's influence as well. He's a powerful figure with his own companies, and his views could heavily sway the administration's approach, particularly when it comes to regulation.
Musk is known for his disdain for regulation, so are we talking about a potential free-for-all in the AI and crypto world?
It's a possibility. There's a concern that the push for innovation and speed might come at the expense of caution and oversight, and that could have consequences down the line.
What kind of consequences?
Well, without proper regulation, you run the risk of ethical issues being ignored, data privacy being compromised, and even the potential for these technologies to be used in harmful ways. It's a delicate balance between fostering innovation and ensuring responsible development.
And right now, it's unclear which way this administration will lean.
It's hard to say. There are certainly strong voices advocating for deregulation, but there's also a growing chorus of concern from those who believe that some level of oversight is essential to protect the public interest.
It's interesting to consider how this might affect the dynamics between startups and big tech as well.
That's another key aspect of this whole story. There's a sense that individuals like Sachs, coming from the venture capital world, might be more sympathetic to the challenges faced by startups and more willing to level the playing field against established tech giants.
So are we talking about a potential shift away from the current focus on antitrust and regulation of big tech?
It's too early to tell, but it's a possibility. The focus might shift towards policies that foster competition and make it easier for smaller, more agile tech companies to thrive. This could include things like reducing regulatory burdens, providing tax incentives, and promoting investment in startups.
That sounds promising for up-and-coming tech companies, but wouldn't that also raise concerns about a lack of oversight and the potential for ethical issues to slip through the cracks?
That's the trade-off.
Right.
A less stringent regulatory environment could lead to faster innovation and more competition, but it also increases the risk of companies cutting corners, prioritizing profit over responsibility.
It's a tough balancing act. On the one hand, you want to encourage innovation and give new companies a chance to succeed. On the other hand, you need safeguards in place to ensure that technology is being developed and used ethically.
Exactly, and finding that balance is going to be crucial in shaping the future of the tech industry under this administration.
So far, we've mainly focused on the potential economic and political implications of Trump's AI agenda. But what about the societal impact? How might these policies affect our lives beyond the realm of business and technology?
That's where things get really interesting. AI has the potential to transform virtually every aspect of our lives.
Right.
How we work, learn, communicate, receive healthcare, and even how we interact with our government. But it also raises some serious concerns about privacy, equality, and the potential for misuse.
Let's start with the issue of jobs. One of the biggest concerns people have about AI is that it's going to automate jobs and leave millions of people unemployed.
It's a valid concern. As AI systems become more sophisticated, they are capable of performing tasks that were previously done by humans. This is already happening in certain industries, and it's likely to accelerate in the coming years.
So are we all doomed to be replaced by robots?
Not necessarily. While some jobs will undoubtedly be lost to automation, new jobs will also be created. The key is to adapt, learn new skills, and focus on areas where humans still have an edge over machines.
What kind of skills are we talking about?
Things like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. These are areas where humans excel, and they'll become even more valuable as AI takes over more routine tasks.
So it's not just about learning how to code or operate robots. It's about developing uniquely human skills that can't be easily replicated by machines.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to work alongside AI, leveraging its strengths while also highlighting our own.
But even if new jobs are created, there's still the issue of income inequality. What happens to the people who lose their jobs to automation and don't have the skills or resources to transition into these new roles?
That's a challenge that we as a society need to address. We need to invest in education and retraining programs to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to adapt and succeed in this new technological landscape. We also need to consider policies like universal basic income or other forms of social safety nets to help those who are displaced by automation.
It seems like the rise of AI is going to require a fundamental shift in how we think about work, education, and the role of government in supporting people through these transitions.
Absolutely. We're on the cusp of a major societal transformation, and it's going to require a collective effort to ensure that everyone benefits from these advancements and that no one is left behind.
Okay, so we've talked about jobs and income inequality, but what about the potential impact on privacy? AI systems rely on vast amounts of data, and there's a concern that our personal information could be misused or exploited.
Privacy is a huge concern, especially given the potential for AI to be used for surveillance and control. With facial recognition technology, social media monitoring, and other AI-powered tools, governments and corporations could potentially track our movements, analyze our behavior, and even predict our actions in ways that feel incredibly invasive.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction dystopia.
It's a real possibility if we're not careful. We need strong privacy regulations, transparency in how AI systems are being used, and mechanisms for holding those in power accountable for any misuse of this technology.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it's used and who has access to it.
Exactly. And that's where policy and regulation become crucial. We need to ensure that AI is developed and deployed in a way that respects human rights, protects individual privacy, and promotes the common good.
It's a lot to consider, and it seems like the stakes are incredibly high.
They are. The decisions we make today about AI will have far-reaching consequences for the future of our society, our economy, and our democracy.
So what can we as individuals do to ensure that AI is used for good and not for harm?
First and foremost, we need to stay informed and engaged in the conversation. Learn about AI, its potential benefits and risks, and how it's being used in your life. Second, hold those in power accountable. Your elected officials, the companies you do business with, the organizations you support. Demand transparency, ethical guidelines, and responsible development and deployment of AI. And finally, be mindful of your own data. Understand how your information is being collected, used, and shared, and advocate for strong privacy protections.
It sounds like we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Absolutely. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us collectively to guide its development and ensure that it serves humanity, not the other way around.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more aspect of this whole AI saga that's been on my mind, the geopolitical implications.
Right.
Specifically, how might Trump's focus on competition with China play out in the AI arena?
That's a crucial point. The articles definitely emphasize the administration's desire to maintain a competitive edge against China in AI development. This could translate into increased funding for research, a focus on developing AI for military applications, and potentially even restrictions on sharing AI technology with China.
So are we talking about a potential AI arms race, with the U.S. and China vying for global dominance in this field?
There's a real risk of that. This kind of competition, if not managed carefully, could escalate tensions, lead to a lack of collaboration, and potentially even hinder progress in the field as a whole.
What would be a better approach?
Ideally, the U.S. and China would find ways to cooperate on AI development, share research findings, and work together to establish international norms and standards for responsible AI use. But given the current geopolitical climate, that seems unlikely.
So we're potentially heading towards a more fragmented AI landscape, with different countries or blocs pursuing their own agendas and potentially conflicting approaches.
That's a real concern. And it raises questions about how we can ensure that AI is developed and used ethically on a global scale. Who will enforce those ethics? Who gets to decide what's right and wrong? These are complex questions with no easy answers.
It's a lot to ponder. This whole AI landscape is incredibly complex, with so many interconnected factors and potential consequences.
It is, and it's only going to get more complex as AI continues to evolve and permeate every aspect of our lives.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored the potential impact of Trump's AI agenda on everything from the energy sector to the future of work to the geopolitical landscape.
It's clear that the stakes are high, and the decisions made in the coming months and years will have far-reaching consequences.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll delve into some of the specific criticisms and concerns that have been raised about Trump's approach to AI. We'll also explore potential responses and strategies that various stakeholders might adopt in light of these developments.
It's going to be a fascinating and thought-provoking discussion as we try to make sense of this rapidly evolving landscape and consider what the future holds for AI in America and the world.
Welcome back to Critical AI. In the previous parts of this deep dive, we discussed the potential impacts of Trump's AI agenda on the tech industry, the energy sector, and even society as a whole.
We saw how the push for AI and crypto could inadvertently lead to a clean energy boom, how Silicon Valley might gain influence, and how these policies could reshape the future of work.
We also touched on the potential risks, like job displacement, privacy concerns, and the ethical implications of AI development without sufficient oversight.
Right.
Now, in this final part, let's dig into some of the specific criticisms and concerns that have been raised about Trump's approach to AI.
Sounds good.
One of the most prominent criticisms that we see in the articles is the lack of transparency surrounding this whole AI team. There's also the issue of potential conflicts of interest, especially with key figures like David Sachs and Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme in the articles. Critics argue that Sachs's continued involvement with his venture capital firm while advising the government creates a situation where his personal financial interests could influence policy decisions.
And Musk's close relationship with Trump and his own ventures in AI raise similar concerns. People are worried that decisions might be made to benefit specific companies or industries rather than serving the broader public good. Transparency is key in building trust. Without clear guidelines and accountability mechanisms, it's easy for skepticism and doubt to creep in.
Definitely.
The articles also highlight a potential culture clash between the fast-paced, profit-driven world of Silicon Valley and the slower, more bureaucratic world of government.
It's an interesting dynamic to consider. Bringing in individuals from Silicon Valley could inject a sense of urgency and innovation into government, but it could also lead to friction and misunderstandings.
Imagine those boardroom meetings, with tech CEOs and government officials. It's hard to picture those two worlds meshing seamlessly.
It's a valid point. The potential for clashes in communication styles, priorities, and even values is definitely there. It'll be interesting to see how those dynamics play out in practice.
Another major concern is the administration's heavy emphasis on national security and defense applications of AI, potentially at the expense of other beneficial applications.
The articles raise the point that this focus could lead to an over-reliance on AI for surveillance, intelligence gathering, and military purposes, while neglecting its potential in areas like healthcare, education, and climate change.
Right. It's like they're fixated on using AI as a weapon rather than a tool for social good.
It's a narrow view that ignores the broader potential of this technology to address some of the world's most pressing challenges.
Okay, so we've laid out the criticisms. Now let's talk about potential responses and strategies that different stakeholders might adopt.
Sure.
One likely response from the tech industry is a push for greater clarity and transparency regarding the administration's AI policies.
Right.
Companies need to know the rules of the game, so to speak. They want to understand what's expected of them, what regulations they need to comply with, and what opportunities are available.
Exactly. Uncertainty breeds anxiety and hesitation. Clear guidelines and open communication from the government will go a long way in easing those concerns and fostering a more stable environment for investment and innovation.
Another potential response from the tech industry is a focus on self-regulation and establishing ethical guidelines for AI development.
We're already seeing some companies taking proactive steps in this direction. They're creating internal ethics boards, developing guidelines for data privacy and bias mitigation, and engaging in public discourse about the responsible use of AI.
It's a way for the tech industry to demonstrate that they're taking these issues seriously and are committed to developing and deploying AI in a way that benefits society.
It's also a strategic move to preempt more stringent government regulation. By showing that they're capable of self-governing, they might be able to avoid stricter oversight from Washington.
Another key response will likely be increased collaboration between the tech industry and academia to conduct research and develop best practices for responsible AI development.
Okay.
This type of collaboration could help bridge the gap between the rapid pace of innovation in the private sector and the need for thoughtful consideration of the ethical and societal implications of AI.
Right.
We might see the emergence of new research centers, joint initiatives between universities and tech companies, and a focus on interdisciplinary research that brings together experts from computer science, ethics, law, and social sciences.
This type of cross-pollination of ideas and expertise could lead to more robust ethical frameworks, better safeguards against bias and misuse, and ultimately more responsible AI development.
And of course, we can expect increased activism and advocacy from civil society groups concerned about the potential negative impacts of AI. Groups focused on privacy, civil liberties, social justice, and environmental protection will likely raise their voices to advocate for policies that protect individual rights, mitigate potential harms, and ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits all of society. We might see protests, public awareness campaigns, legal challenges, and efforts to influence public opinion and policymakers.
This type of activism is crucial to keep the conversation about AI balanced, ensuring that it doesn't just reflect the interests of tech companies and governments, but also the concerns and aspirations of the wider public.
It seems like the future of AI policy will be shaped by a dynamic interplay between the tech industry, government, civil society, and the public.
Yeah, it's a multi-stakeholder conversation that will require open dialogue, collaboration, and a willingness to grapple with the complex ethical and societal challenges that AI presents.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that the decisions made in the coming years about AI will have a profound impact on the future of our society, our economy, and our world.
AI has the potential to be an incredible force for good, helping us solve some of the world's most pressing problems. But it also has the potential to be misused, leading to unintended consequences and even exacerbating existing inequalities.
It's up to all of us, governments, tech companies, researchers, and everyday citizens, to work together to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of all humankind. Thank you for joining us on Critical AI for this in-depth exploration of the potential impacts and challenges of AI in the age of Trump. We hope you found this deep dive informative and thought-provoking. We'll continue to explore these critical issues in future episodes, providing insightful analysis and diverse perspectives to help you navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.